What is up, gamers? Welcome back into the bi-yearly upload. I think that's correct English. I was looking back, a couple of years ago, I was doing at least like one a week with the old podcast there, and, sometimes twice a week if we had an interview in. So, bit of a soft promise. I'm going to hopefully into next year pick it up a little bit more. I'm working on, I suppose, getting an adult schedule going and being proper job-minded. So we'll see. Go back down the roster of people, see who's still active, see if there's anyone who's moved up, might get a bit of a interesting interview. And hopefully the past couple of years, I should be able to ask around and, my reputation might get me a few more interviews. We'll see. Either way, we are getting into things, and of course, the easiest content going. So it's got to be done. And everybody in the community gets involved. Probably one of my favorite times of the year, everyone posting it on Twitter, everyone posting videos and stuff like that. Always cool to see, and shout out to people like Dualism who keep track, get the spreadsheets out, who's still on for Diamond and stuff like that. It's always very cool to sort of keep up with, and hopefully see your name in the Diamond contention. Either way, we are going to roll straight into it here. I will be honest, I have actually already done this, but the audio was cooked, so we're going to have to move again. And yeah, that's just the way it is. But it's also a battle of remembering what my picks were, because I didn't take a picture or anything like that. So yeah, we'll see. And I was starting to talk myself out of a few of them. Either way, let's crack in. Imagine I didn't say that, and now we're here with a fresh slate. I am going to start with the Mongols in the 3-0. All right, might be a little bit crazy, but I like the way they look. I actually think that they have a pretty good chance at winning the whole thing. I think they should make a deep playoff run, in their back garden kind of thing. Definitely does help when it comes to the major and potentially being comfortable, I suppose, in the area. It's not quite, their country or whatever, obviously, but either way, I think it will make a difference for them. And they've been looking very good, scaling up 3 lands this year. Some decent results as well, some good wins against big teams, which is obviously going to be the tough thing here, is can they take down some of those higher level squads? We're about to find out. And they're also, for my money, sort of coming into their own, right? A young team, very, very young team. You have to bear this in mind in terms of the actual ages, right? Very young team, probably one of the youngest in the competition, if not maybe the youngest. Passion UA could give them a run, potentially. But they might actually be the youngest, to be honest with you. Maybe Gamer Legion. Don't know. Either way, it does make a difference. They've been playing very respectful, very sort of humble, and I think that we are starting to see just little spatterings, on Twitter and things like this, of them getting confident, getting confident in themselves as being one of the best in the world. So, yeah, this is go time. This is a real telltale sort of tournament for them if they can deliver on the biggest stage when the stage is indeed set for the Mongols. So yeah, I'm up on them. Look, I know that the previous logic has been like, don't put a team that you expect to go through in the 3-0, but the thing is, if they go 3-0, which I think they will, then you don't get them in the 3-1, 3-2 category as you used to in the past, right? So there was sort of a mind game going on, or a game theory, I suppose, going on previously, whereas now it doesn't apply so much. So if you think that they are going to go through and you're pretty confident in it, if they suffer a loss, that's tough. If you're putting them in the 3-1, 3-2, you're maybe not as confident that they're actually going to go through. So that's my thoughts. I like putting my money where my mouth is. The next one that's going to go through for me is big. I think that this is a bit more of a recent vote. This is maybe that one that's like, yeah, go for a darker horse sort of team, but they actually look very, very good at the RMR. I think the addition of Rigon has made big changes to this team. They are obviously known as being one of the great minds, or having some of the great minds in Counter-Strike, and, Tabson, Godby, players like this, maybe even into a Searson. Yes, inconsistent, but the way that they view the game as a team has always been something that they've been quite vocal about. But the addition of Rigon, I think, brings a very big change to this team. So I think that is something to watch and to just sort of analyze how they're able to perform now that maybe things are slotting into place again ahead of the biggest tournament. And it comes at a very, very good time, the major. It's the last tournament of the circuit. You've got the holiday period afterwards. Everybody's going to be finished and chilling. So you don't have this weird, like, over looming where it's like, okay, we've got the major where we want to do well, but then we've got like world finals or something where we're actually in with a pretty decent chance, and the prize pool versus the amount of teams you have to play is bigger, and so on and so on. It's like a weird kind of thing where maybe you're working a lot more on your own game and focusing in and trying not to burn out and stuff, while also wanting to give the major the attention it needs. So it's very, very difficult for sure. But this time around, sort of different. You can put your all into the major, which I think will make a big difference for teams like Big, where, yes, they need to improve on their own game. They also need a bit of anti-stratting in there, sort of the way that they approach the game as well, So I think for the smaller teams, it's going to make a difference for sure. So into the 03 next. Again, got to go with something that fits the logic. Everyone always says, don't put the Asian teams in your 03. Might get a little fuck your Pickems come out from Rare Atom, but it just has to be one that in my head makes sense. Not too much thinking about it. They did qualify in that second spot in the Asia RMR. For me, maybe performed a little bit better than I would have expected. I think I could have seen them in that third spot. It was FlyQuest that sort of got surprised in the BO1s. Unfortunately, some kind of overdog favorite is going to have that happen to them. And then in the lower bracket, they made a comfortable run. It was close there against the Drillers, but they did indeed get it done. And that was like the whole way through the lower bracket as well. So pretty harsh. 3 best of 3s, if I'm not mistaken, to get the spot in the end for them. Whereas, like the Mongols, I think only had to play 1. They won their first, and then you play a BO3, and then you win that, and then you're in. So I'm pretty sure that was the structure. I've had a few sleeps since then, and sleeping pattern was completely backwards while I was doing it. So, I didn't know what day it was. Right. Now it gets a bit more interesting. I will stick to my original plan, and that was actually Cloud9 in the 03. I know it's a little wacky. I'm sort of down on this team, unfortunately. They got my boy Heavy God. I think he's maybe the only redeeming feature. IC still has this potential, but now that he's moved up a level, it's hard. It's hard. Not many players can do it, right? And I think that he is potentially struggling. Yeah, and then I don't know, man. The rest of the team, there's plenty in there where you have the sort of the likes of an Axile still disappointing and just sort of looking depressing. I think that Boomich's style of in-game leading is just not really on trend anymore, let's say. He also, unfortunately, doesn't have the pieces around him to necessarily go for this full send sort of style. It's not the firepower of Na'Vi 21, but he's still sort of playing it like Na'Vi 21. You know what I mean? So, yeah, they qualified okay in their own RMR. It's not like they necessarily disappointed there, sorry. I just think, you got to go someone a little bit wackier. Maybe someone like Wildcard might make sense. Maybe FlyQuest or whatever. But I think, we've got one that feels solid for me and one that is a surprise. I don't think that Cloud9 will qualify, put it that way. So, I'm full sending. Now, the rest of the teams is actually where it gets quite difficult. There's a lot of good names here. We'll start with Furia towards the top. I think that you have a great deal of experience here. Some incredible players on this team, historically speaking. And I think that when it comes to the opening stage of a major, this is something that really spurs these guys forwards. And I think that they will be able to qualify through. It might be a little tight. It might be a little close. They have shown signs of improvement recently. So I think that there is potential for them to actually look a lot cleaner than expected, but I think they'll still make it through even on a shakier day. The next has got to be Team Liquid for me. Again, against the higher level competition, we're seeing good and bad. It is still a transitional period. Twist is learning. Yes, he's worked with some of the great in-game leaders of the game, but he is still learning, and it is a massive shift. We also just see some players on this team, Yekindar is the obvious one to point at, but I think also like a JKS, for example, just sort of not themselves some games, maybe even Twists as well from the IGL perspective. The mental does feel shaky, but for me, that's in some of the bigger games. I think when they are going through like the rigmarole of, again, qualifying and whatnot, I think that they have looked good there. They've not really struggled too much. Another team in that same sort of vein is Col. They've got themselves a challenger win this year. They've placed well at Pro League. But when it comes to getting over that final hurdle against the higher level competition, they're still trying to break through that ceiling. Can they do it, though? This is the thing. I think that the baseline of these NA teams over the past few years, if you can even really call Liquid NA, has certainly lifted, but it's still that ceiling that I think lets them down. It is something that unfortunately may never happen, may not happen at the moment, right? Obviously there was a time, but we're talking like 5-6 years ago now with the old Liquid squad. Since then, I don't know that we've necessarily had, an NA team. It's been tough. There's lots to talk about there. Valorant, COVID, being cut off from the rest of the world, even for the players that stuck around. But yeah, it does seem like breaking through that ceiling is a challenge for them. Right, now, this is where things get a little harder for me. Okay, so I'm going to go Fnatic. I think, again, RMR-wise, similar to Big, they've looked very good. Whether they have the pieces, whether they can push through, I'm not quite sure. I think they're a very touch-and-go kind of team. Actually makes them a little bit unpredictable, but it also makes it hard for them to discover, like, how to replicate wins. And, they're playing against teams they don't touch very much, right? Some of these South American teams, maybe Wildcard, potentially a Passion UA, you could say, they don't really play them very often. Or even know how they sort of approach. And I think a team like Passion UA is going to be quite problematic for a lot of the squads in here because they just play this super, like, bare bones, fundamentally driven style. And it is often something that at the higher level, can get a little bit overlooked, actually, because you have such great fraggers that maybe you don't need to focus in on those fundamentals that, you did them years ago. It's fine. But as it comes about, you're going to come up against a team who takes what is maybe 80% for your team and they take it to 120%, and they're just drilling you with all this simple kind of stuff, and there is no mind games, there is no read to happen there. They're just attacking bomb sites, very well spaced, shooting your head, and whatnot. You don't have to get that advanced level of mind game going. But I think Fnatic should still be in with a pretty good chance. The next one I'm going to go, I believe, Pain here. It's hard. I could definitely see like a Gamer Legion, maybe your wild card with how well they've been doing. VP, sure. I'm a little down on VP. I actually don't think they're going to qualify, to be honest with you. But Pain, they're always very quietly in there. They're always capable. They may well be a team that sort of gets wrongly overlooked. They've got, brilliant leadership in Big Uzera. They've got a lot of efficiency domestically. So I think against, the other South American teams in here, which there are 3, I think they will do very, very well. Yeah, so I could see them qualifying. Again, it's one of those teams where it's like, I don't know. If I had a gun to my head, probably wouldn't put them in there, actually. But, you have to vote a little with your heart, a little sort of savvy, a little under the radar, as it were. And then the next one, speaking of with heart, is going to be Passion UA. I'm a tier 2 guy. This is a tier 2 team. They are sort of our hero squad, as it were. We've not really... 3D Max is the other one in the elimination stage, but we've not had loads and loads of teams like this from the EU RMRs. this time around, and also just not for a while because of the way that the RMRs have been formatted recently. So yeah, I'm up on them. I'm a big fan. They got Jambo, that's a cool name. They got S Chiller, that's a very cool name. So yeah, they're going to go in there. That's very much with the heart, but they also did look really good. And as I've just noted on, loads of like individual fraggers, loads of those key fundamentals that I think will catch off a few teams that could be a bit sloppy with it. Like someone like Gamer Legion, again, going to be tough, but like a VP, Fnatic, as I've said, teams that maybe play the NA teams for sure, FlyQuest definitely, the teams that potentially are trying to still figure out a little bit of what their identity is and get the pieces working and whatnot. And it's like in Passion UA, it's almost as though there is no pieces. It's just Counter-Strike. If we were to build a team tomorrow, this is what I would tell you to focus on, and that is indeed what they focus on. So I think they could really catch a few squads. But listen, man, it's actually quite tough. Not putting VP in might be a bit crazy. Wildcard obviously cleaned up in their own respective RMR. Gamer Legion, given the pieces that they have actually done very, very well here to make it through. No offense to the squad, but I think they've definitely overperformed a little bit there. They've been gutted recently, so it's certainly tough. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It's one of the tougher opening stages I think we've had. Everybody probably says that ahead of every single opening stage just to cover their bases. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, folks. And I will catch you in the next one, I suppose. See you there.